LGD's turn to ban.
And we're back, our
Team
second
Dignitas'
game of our
turn
next to
to
last
ban.
series of the evening, and we're coming off the biggest upset that we've seen, at least on this stream here today. Team Dignitas, who started the day out really down and out, having just gotten beaten down
LGD's
badly by
turn
DK,
to ban.
has instead managed, you know what, that's fine. We're going to go on a tear, and we're going to win 3
Dignitas'
straight games,
turn to
including an
ban.
utter 28-minute stomp of LGD Gaming, unanimously considered by most to be one of the best in the
LGD's
business.
turn
So
to
Dignitas certainly finding their stride when they needed to the most. And again, and you were talking about this earlier, Draskell, the fact that even if they end up losing the second game, getting a win against a team like this, and it's kind of like other sports when you look at it, where you can look at a schedule and be like, okay, that's a should win, that's a should win, that's a should win. But then if you want to sneak a win, you want to go on to some other turf and try to get a win in terms of seeding, in terms of wild cards and all this stuff. And hopefully there are some sports fans that get that analogy. But yeah, that's a great point to make. The fact that Dignitas, this is a series that no one would blame them for going 0-2, and they probably wouldn't even plan on splitting the series. Now with that one extra win, when it comes down to seeding time, that difference maker between being in the top and the bottom half of the bracket, that one win can very often be what puts you over the top. So already Dignitas has to be very proud of what they've accomplished, but I'm sure they're going to want to make it a goose egg that they give to LGD instead of a breadstick. So, but anyway, LGD, I mean, really I want to see if there's a Timbersaw ban, by the way, and we haven't seen it in the first 2, but might, as you said, end up seeing it later. But LGD going to go ahead and lead things off with that Chen pick.
Dignitas' turn to pick.
Chen doesn't really give a ton away other than the fact that LGD are going to have some push potential. Chen is just one of those versatile heroes who can gank very early if you need him to. He can be in the jungle just doing his own thing, farm, wait to get the mech arcane boots, and try to form the beginning of the death ball, which is the same way that DK beat Dignitas into the ground in the first game that we actually had the chance to cast today. And again, I don't think that Dignitas deal with that kind of strategy very well, but they are going to take away the DK straight away, which I do love, and they're also going to get their hands on a Nature's Prophet once again. So there's not going to be the potential for just a huge death push that Dignitas aren't going to be able to stop this time. They have somebody who can stand the front lines, they have somebody who can split push, and for the first time today, we're actually going to get to see an Outworld Devourer pick, and typically he's banned in the first 4 just because he's like an auto win for his lane,
right?
And it's very obnoxious to deal with because there's really not a whole lot any hero can do. There's very few heroes, if any, who can really go toe-to-toe with him. I think Lone Druid's one of them. Shadow Fiend, if played like amazingly well, can deal with it. And you can see LGD, they know the Lone Druid is a hero that can do it, so they just ban him immediately. So yeah, they're just going for a free lane win here. They could be picking up a safe lane farmer and kind of play a standard style and try to go for some quick towers.
I really love seeing the OD, especially when you put it with a hero like a Chen. Chen in particular, these two heroes, when we've had a chance to cast this together and when cast it elsewhere, these two heroes just tend to have a really easy time succeeding together. Outworld Devourer is very often a hero who wants to build a mechanism. He can get one up extremely quickly coming out of that mid lane, as you mentioned. Very rarely is he going to struggle in that matchup. And you pair that with the Chen, who already is, it's always nice when a Chen is able to not have the responsibility of the mech on his shoulders. He can get something like Art Boots and then pick up another item that'll help the team in a different way. You have OD, who certainly is going to peak at the same time a Chen tends to peak. You'll have a mechanism on a hero. You'll have Chen with his own hand of God. And then you can just build a push-oriented lineup around that. Now, something that we had talked about before was the fact that Dignitas traditionally, and you're the one who made this observation, it was very insightful, Dignitas tends to do better against teams that want to be aggressive and fight under towers as opposed to teams that want to push towers. They seem to struggle against that, not all the time, but in many cases. It's just not, it takes them out of their comfort zone because they are the ones who like to be in the active role. And unless they can shut it down right off the bat, they tend to just get a little defensive. They tend to kind of clam up, and their playstyle becomes out of their own comfort zone. So having the Dragon Knight and the Nature's Prophet is going to give them split push of its own. Dragon Knight, a very, very underrated push hero, and it may just end up being the war for the towers, man. You want to talk about tower defense? We might get to see multiplayer this time.
Yeah, I mean, this one for me is Dignitas. Forget splitting it. Forget giving LGD a win. Just go 2-0, man. America. That's kind of how I feel about this game. Yeah, exactly. So if you're Dignitas right now, you're thinking to yourself, what do we actually put mid against the OD? That's pretty much the first order of business. Do we send the DK? Because the DK goes mid, he's not going to get anything. And when I mean he's not going to get anything, I mean he's probably going to be like that DreamHack Summer game where we casted where Funzy was against a Nyx. I think it was Hani's Nyx, right?
Yes.
And he had like 0 CS at 8 minutes. Like actually 0.
Right.
That's what's going to happen to him. And you want to try to avoid that.
Turn to pick.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was fun. Yeah, that I remember that match very clearly. Like, and it wasn't as if it wasn't as if he was getting ganked and died 15 times. Like, he was just left alone. He wasn't playing Dota, because to play Dota you have to hit creeps. If you don't hit creeps, you're not playing Dota, and he didn't hit creeps very often. So, but yeah, that's just what an OD brings to the table, as you had mentioned. And OD also, so long as he can get ahead and stay ahead, his ultimate very, very powerful in the right situations. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to build around this. I mean, when you have a Chen and an OD, both heroes that are going to work well, we've already covered all that. Wow. Okay, they said that's fine. We like Timbersaw now. It's like when you play, like, if you ever play like a Team Fortress, whenever you pick a class and then you die to the enemy class, you immediately switch to the enemy class, because it's obviously the best class or it wouldn't have killed you. That's what LGD's doing here.
Well, if it was TF3 that we're talking about, I'm equally bad at all the classes, so I would probably just die again anyway. But I'm sure LGD definitely has a capable Timbersaw player. Yeah. I just want to know what their lanes are going to be now, because Timbersaw is actually great against Dragon Knight in a 1 versus 1, because he'll actually edge out the spam more a little bit because of reactive armor. It actually gives you more regeneration and armor than Dragon's Blood, and you'll be leveling it before the Dragon's Blood anyway. So it's an interesting dynamic. I still think putting OD mid is probably a safer bet, because it will absolutely shut down the DK as opposed to just kind of shutting him down. And the OD can farm in the middle lane just as well as he can farm in the top lane. But Dignitas are going to pick themselves a Razor, so this could be the choice to go mid instead. Link is still very effective because it doesn't cost like any mana.
Right.
Level 1 Link costs 20 mana, so even if you just buy a wand, you can probably get Link off even after the first couple of levels of being in prison spam, just by using the wand, using the Link, forcing the OD back. And then at least you're not losing out on like 20 base damage difference or 30 base damage difference because he's got so much extra bonus set. Then you're at least back on even terms, and you can try to get your own CS.
5 seconds.
Waiting to see what LGD is going to tack on here. And again, I mean, the Timbersaw pick, very interesting. We've seen exactly what that hero is capable of in the very capable hands of Sneaking in particular, who has had 2 good games in a row. First time we saw him today was a little hit and miss, but yeah, it's Shadow Demon actually going to be the answer here. Shadow Demon. I mean, they needed another support, so I totally support it. But again, I'm still struggling a bit to see exactly what they're going for here. They're lacking really any good amount of initiation. Timbersaw, as you had mentioned, he can initiate and he can get into a fight, but he needs to have items up before then. He doesn't really have a concerted stun. Chakram is amazing, but usually you want to put that with some other AoE, a Beastmaster or something like that, even if it's not a Magnus or anything that quite of that magnitude. Whereas when I look at Dignitas, they've got a team that feels like they've got good answers to these things. Whenever they group up the push, they're going to be able to split push with the Prophet. Dragon Knight, of course, can push really well. Bane, a nice answer to OD in and of his own right, or being able to enfeeble him, enfeeble the Timbersaw, and then Razor, of course, as you had mentioned, just how good Static Link, in particular in the laning phase, is good against the OD. And I feel like Dignitas is just really confident. Like, this feels like a very confident draft to me. They're not trying to overthink it. They're just looking at it and saying, what are we good at? And what can we do to answer what you're going to be threatening us with? And I feel like I won't say it's a win for them, but I do feel like it's a very strong draft for them. And that LGD, with this lineup, with 2 heroes like the OD and the Chen, as good as OD is, he can fall behind, and he doesn't play that well from behind. So if Dignitas is able to take some early fights, that's exactly what we saw in Game 1. They took enough early fights that they got just a little bit ahead, and then they were able to parlay that into a big snowball win by holding the Alchemist down. And I can see that very easily happening at this point to the OD.
Yeah, and also important to mention here, the 2 core right now of Dignitas both are going to go BKB, and once that's done, LGD does a collective 0 damage.
Right.
Like, absolutely none. They are going to have to pick a carry who does an insane amount of physical damage to try to compensate for this. And not only that, but LGD, during the late game, they're not going to be able to win. Like, in the late game, if it goes that far, they have 0 disables. They have none. They have a disruption, which is kind of a disable, but they're going to go ahead and finish it off with a Kunkka. So it looks like this is actually going to be a tri-lane Kunkka, I would assume. So the Shadow Demon Kunkka is going to be coming back a bit. A very potent combination, to say the least. And Coco Rum gives them some very needed tankiness that most of the heroes on their team didn't really have before. And it's really nice to just be able to soak up things like Plasma Field and Breathe Fighter and not just have to back straight away, and you can continue fighting and actually get some kills before you guys have to actually retreat. So I do like that last pick from LGD. I think that really rounds out their draft nicely. But for Dignitas, I think that they probably have the overall better all-around draft. Just need to make sure that you deal with the OD and you don't let him just get insane amounts of farm. And it does actually look like Sylar might be heading to the safe lane.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen this. It is something you'll occasionally see. It's kind of the same reason you don't usually want to defensively tri-lane a Shadow Fiend, is unless you're just basically throwing your supports out the dry and doing nothing but roaming them, you'll end up having your carry suffer a little bit in experience gain because you're going to have the stacking, the pulling, and all this stuff, and you're going to end up having a little bit of a leech. It's just a hero that really does want that solo lane and is so damn good at it that it's hard to justify taking him away with that and taking that risk. But it can be a good situation, and I like the fact that they're sending Kunkka mid, just because Kunkka is one of those heroes, when handled in capable hands, it's easy to forget that he literally, like, early on, once he hits 6, he has a chain of initiation all by himself that if it's timed correctly, it is literally impossible to not be caught in it. There's no skill cap, there's no, oh, you can do this, oh, you can do that. If you get caught, you get caught. If you get X marks the spot and the torrent and the boat are timed exactly right, he will just kill you over and over again. And you combine that with a team that, as we were talking about, once they get active early, they've got the Shen, they've got the OD. Kunkka is just the master of always being ready to fight. The cooldown on Ghost Ship is just so low. And what it's going to give a push-centric team that is usually going to be lined up with marching orders, with Chin's creeps leading the way, and with the positioning predetermined. You're going to be guaranteed to catch them with the rum, and it's going to make it so much easier to not only take fights, but to push and take fights you might normally not want to, just for fear of overextending. So I really love the Kunkka pick. Like, I feel like the Kunkka pick shored up so many weaknesses that LGD had until they put the Admiral on their team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And in normal circumstances, I would say that Sneaking would be thrilled to not see the OD mid, except he's against 2 heroes, at least for the time being. DDC is probably just going to go ahead and go top lane and try to do some pulling and such. But honestly, as good as Kunkka is for the team of LGD, and I totally agree with everything that you were mentioning about the team fight and just the line of initiation that he does have, he's also allowing Sneaking to farm by going mid.
Yep.
Because Sneaking would have gotten absolutely demolished by an Outworld Devourer. There's just no chance that he would have had. But now, he's been giving the opportunity to get some farm, which does change the dynamic of the game. Because again, him getting a BKB at some early phase in the game allows them to take fights whenever they want, and a DK with a BKB against LGD's lineup is pretty much invincible. So it looks like they're going to be applying some really early pressure here to the tower. Just going to go ahead and pull out the standard dual lane. So that means Dignitas' attention is pretty much going to be pulled mid for the early game.
Yeah, just trying to soak up what he can with the off-lane Timbersaw. I actually really don't like a straight up, just soak experience of try not to die approach to Timbersaw. He's a hero who doesn't need a whole lot, but what he does need, he needs desperately. And we're going to see Sneaking taking some damage. You don't really have the firepower at this level quite yet to bring him down, but certainly harassing him back and doing some damage. But, when we see Timbersaws fail, it's usually because they stall out and they're just lacking that Soul Booster or that Bloodstone or whatever build, sometimes a Shiva's. They're lacking whatever item they need to shore up his mana issues, because he is very mana-starved throughout the entirety of the game, and make him more survivable. And that's the one thing that worries me with this. He has soaked up to level 2, so he's not in horrible shape, but other than just the scraps of experience that Dignitas is allowing him to have, he's not getting anything done down here.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because Timbersaw might not necessarily need items, but he definitely needs levels. And there's going to be a point where Dignitas are going to completely zone him out. Clearly he can't get anywhere near Aoi, you're just going to get linked and be forced to Timber Chain away. But the one nice thing about having the Timbersaw down here is that it's a lot more annoying for the supports to actually make pulls happen, because Aoi can't help right now. Every time you pull, you're basically committing that the person under the tower is going to have to stay there. You can't just drag the creep wave all the way down. Yeah,
I'm going to take some damage here. He was nightmared. Way 2 tried to cut him off. He is going to use the Timber Chain, but now he's going for the river. Not a lot to chain right now. The Ursa, not enough. I'll never stop calling that an Ursa. Hellbear Smasher's a dumb name. I stand by it. But he does manage to make it away before the Ursa could do any damage. Now we're going to have a disruption. The Torrent on the mark. Not going to overcommit to it, though. Just taking that as free harassment damage. Up at top, Sylar, quite happy to be taking what farm he's getting, sitting at about 14. And, here in mid, when you look at Sneaking, he's already at level 4.5. He's actually slightly ahead of Kunkka in level gain, but that's not that bad for Xiao 8, because he is winning big time in CS, 19-6, and he has had another hero hanging around quite often.
Yeah, that's the one downside to dual laning mid, is that the person who wants the experience more, in this case Xiao 8, is not getting quite as much as he would normally like to. But, of course, they're keeping Sneaking down pretty well. So, as long as they continue to do this and Xiao 8 gets his core items up that much faster, then it's going to be worth it for them. And you can see the The Harpy here being very annoying. That Chain Lightning, by the way, is obnoxiously good.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. It's hard to believe, like, looking back for the longest time, even, like, in the heyday, like, going back more than a year ago, in the heyday of Chen and Enchantress, when those two heroes were first picked first ban, like, when you and I were doing Monthly Madness, you just did not see this. Like, no one just thought to bring the Harpy into lane, especially bring it into mid lane. Now, if you have an Enchantress or a Chen, it's almost guaranteed. Every time there's a Wildkin Ripper, every time there's a Harpy, he's going to get involved. And look what he's done here. That's first blood just given away to a Breathe Fire. They may end up getting the return kill. Nope, never mind. Zhao 8 too low. That was made to happen almost entire. Oh, sneaking, barely makes it away and bottles up. Survived the splash from that Tidebringer with 20 HP. But first blood, and that actually was kind of funny to watch because it was like sneaking ate him. He just opened his mouth and ate that hero after the Harpy whittled him down.
Yeah, that is something that I don't think that LGD wanted to happen, because now Dragon Knight is a full level ahead of the Kunkka. He's actually more than a level ahead. So now he has Dragon Form, which means that he's going to get that extra little bit of movement speed if he needs to actually retreat. And it also means that if he does ever get the chance to attack the tower, he's going to be able to do an insane amount of damage to it, as opposed to just hitting it with his sword. So really good start for Dignitas once again. This dual lane has pretty much already, well, for LGD, it's already pretty much failed. Like, you can't just say, okay, yeah, the solo hero got a first blood in our dual lane, it's perfectly fine, because it's honestly not. And because of the fact that they were actually splitting the experience and the Shadow Demon was level 3 when he died, it gives sneaking even more. So props to the Enchantress here being played by Wei2 for being that persistent with his Harpy, let's say that. And I don't know why the Shadow Demon was getting that close in the first place, but might be going for mid.
And there's going to be the Soul Catcher this time. Zhao 8, not quite level 6. Once he hits level 6, that changes. Like, level 6, he's dead. If he comes forward like that and Zhao 8 manages to get off the Chain of Initiation appropriately and time up the ship, the Torrent, and the X marks the spot, he will die every single time, especially with the Shadow Demon there. He actually hasn't put a point in X marks the spot yet, which is a little rare. Usually by now you'll see at least one. Instead, maxing Torrent along with Tidebringer and foregoing it. He will take ship at 6, so it'll be at least level 7. Before you can look to execute. I'll tell you one of the best in the business at doing that's Korok. Korok on a Kunkka, he never messes it up. He just has money in the bank, and I've seen it just demolish heroes like Naga Siren and DK in mid so many times that that's one reason I'm surprised Zhao 8 has not put that point there yet.
Well, it's mainly because he has a Shadow Demon. I mean, it's really easy to line up the combo. In your head, the delay is 1.6 on Torrent, and Disruption lasts 2.5, and oh, he's just going to land the blind one here.
Yep, there we go. And the Disruption's there. Still not level 6, though. However, he's got a Timber Saw hanging around, sneaking, trying to wand through it. Shadow Poison. Enough to secure the kill, and a Nature's Prophet just dies somewhere in the meantime as well. Managed, looks like he must have gotten, yeah, just got dove by Sylar, who, yeah, dropped the hammer on him. I can see his ulti's on cooldown. So that's going to make it 2-1. Dignitas got the first blood, but they feed 2 back as we approach 7 minutes in.
Well, that was a very much needed kill or 2, let's say that, and dying in the 1 versus 1 in the top lane is really, really bad, because Sylar, he's got 46 CS right now, and it's 7 minutes into the game, which is pretty insane. He's actually not even the top, which I think is even more surprising, because the Chen actually has the most. He has 2 Wild Ring Rippers, so he was doing creep stacking and killing it with the Tornadoes, which means he has a mech, pretty much. Like, he needs 1 more creep, and he has a mech already. But in the meantime, Dignitas, they're going to do some counter ganking here. They're going to be going for Zhao 8 in the middle lane. This is actually a very hard hero to kill.
Here we go. Kunkka ate the Dragon Tail. Looks like maybe either a misfire, a miscommunication, or just him wanting to spin a Dragon Tail for the fun of it. He's going to have his Dragon form up in 2 seconds, so that's probably what they're waiting on. Yep, and Wei2 now going to try to move his way into position. Here we go. There's the Dragon Tail right after the ulti. They're going to be there to follow it up. A lot of damage. Stomp from the Centaur, and a very well-executed gank. Could not have executed the Chain of Initiation much better. Make it 2-2, but more importantly, that's going to give that DK even more room to breathe.
And Sticking also gets his hands on a regen, and they might be able to turn this.
DDC. Sprouted in, nowhere to go. Set back to the base, but not the way he wants. 3-2. 2 very nice kills, and now they're going to be able to push off of it as they've got 4 there. This is where that push potential we had talked about, kind of phantom push potential, because you know, it's like, yeah, of course an Enchantress can help push. He's like a Chen. But sneaking with the damage on the tower from the poison, now they're going to reinitiate. They're going to try to catch him with the boat. Mistimes the Torrent, however. And the disruption actually caught him near max range. There's a soul catcher afterwards. They're going to try to buy him time. Sprout does buy him some time. There's the Astral Imprisonment. Now AUI turning. Plasma Field doing good damage. Both teams split in half. And neither able to bring anyone on the other side down. We're going to see them being pursued down the river now. Fog makes it to the high ground. Another imprisoned from Siler. They're going to think twice about it, though. Doubling back to their own side of the river, not wanting to rush up blindly in the nighttime. And Dignitas able to hold there. Thought they might have been caught out. Thought they might have been punished. But Zhao 8 unable to land the boat and the Torn off the mark as well. Missed opportunity, 3-2. Dignitas maintains the lead.
That could have went so bad.
Oh, it could have.
There for Dignitas. I mean, Zhao 8, he dropped the ball. He missed the combo.
Yep.
That would have been able to probably kill Sneaking just flat out with the team follow-up. So really fortunate that Sneaking is still continuing to have a pretty darn good game. I mean, he doesn't have the highest CS or anything like that, but he's got 2 kills to his name. And he's pretty much been playing his best that you could possibly expect him to in this particular position. So Yao, he's only level 5, whereas Universe is 7 in terms of the offlaners. So Dignitas is ahead in pretty much every way, but not by a large margin. There's obviously still a lot of room for LGD China to come back here. They have smoked up. Looks like they're going to try to wrap around middle lane, maybe even go for the tier 1 top. They did see Fogged farming creeps at the tower. Oh yeah, oh. That is actually a next level way to get over there. Are they really going to run right past him?
Wow.
Oh, no, he's running back.
Whoopsie. Rather be lucky than good. Sometimes you just got to die because of it. He is going to nightmare himself, buy some time. Trying to duck his way out. They're still trying to track him down. Fog just trying to buy time. Cleaned up with a test of face. Siler was there just in case there was a reinitiation. In the meantime, though, did buy a little bit of time for Sneaking and Wave 2 to shove the creep wave and begin going to work once again on the tier 1 mid at bottom. AUI and Universe in position to try and push there as well. Tower relatively unscathed so far. Boat's going to be there. Does not connect. And Sneaking spins a Dragon Tail. Very tanky at this point. Those extra levels that they got making all the difference. He is invisible. And Wave 2 is there with Nature's Attendance. And we're going to see the ulti drop. Not doing the damage I think he wanted it to. Shen using the heal to get him back into shape. Now Universe is there, gets a Sprout off on Zhao 8. Fog joins the fight as well. There's a good Dragon Tail. Imprison. Buys a little bit of time. And they will not get him away. That's a double kill with 1 Plasma Field. And they clean up the 3rd as well. AUI, right place, right time, and simple geometry. As the Radius lines up perfectly and gives him a double kill with the mass damage output. Dignitas. Are you kidding me, guys? You got ran by DK, and now you're laying the wood to LGD. They take another tower. We're just at 12 minutes in. Looking at the gold, though, look how quickly this got out of control. Less than 1,000 gold advantage to either side the entire game until the last 5 minutes. And Dignitas escaping what could have been an unmitigated disaster in mid have completely blown this game wide open. They are in charge.
This is Dignitas' playstyle, man. We always said they love skirmish. They love being able to fight. Just whenever they see an opportunity, they can go in. Universe with the clutch, Wrath of Nature right there, getting the extra damage done. And the timing of the Breathe Fire was so good that Sneaking actually hit both targets right there. He was waiting for the Banish to end, the Astral Imprisonment, to make sure that he could hit 2, and then the Plasma Field secured the kills, of course, coming out of AUI. So mech done on him now, which means their push is going to be even more powerful. They're going for the last tier 1. Bottom's already completely dead. LGD are very quickly losing their map control.
Yep.
And with a Kunkka on your team, that's something that typically doesn't happen that fast. You're always able to defend because you always have the boat. The run buff allows you to take team fights that otherwise you probably wouldn't have been able to. But Dignitas are just always one step ahead.
Dignitas certainly in control of the pace of the game right now. Siler kind of has got his ass in the air here in mid, and he's about to pay for it as all of Dignitas are ready to collapse on him. Here we go, Sneaking with a haste rune. 4 staff showed off. Not going to get him away from a haste rune, though, and Chant certainly helps. He uses the Dragon Tail to secure the kill. There is going to be a TP, not even necessary. In the meantime, at top, they might want to try to make Fog pay. We're going to see another TP come in. He's going to try to get away. Going back to his own tier 1, will make it. And now the mass reaction, and Dignitas wants to fight again. They're going to try and punish LGD because they know many of these heroes just teleported. There's the Fiend's Grip, and the disruption's there to interrupt it. AUI followed up by Sneaking. They're going to try and run. Ship going to pass through them, and only caught 1 hero. DDC spotted out, eats the Dragon Tail. That's an easy death. DD just hanging out in the lane. Lucky it wasn't reinitiated upon. His teammates were actually quite far away that time. Down at bottom, Universe is just kind of too busy being cool to come help. Don't worry about it, buddy. Your team's got it under control. But yeah, tier 1 top. Then they're just running away. Not only are they not contesting it, they are actively putting distance between themselves and that tower at this point. Dignitas has got them turning tail between legs.
Dire's top tower has fallen.
I'm actually... When Fog TP'd, like 9 out of 10 players would have TP'd to the base.
Yep.
Just because they're like, oh crap, I gotta get out of here, TP, and you just like double tap to go to base. But he knew that they were gonna be fighting, so he just teleported to the tower. It's just small things like that, like decision making, that allow you to re-engage. And even though the Fiend's Grip didn't exactly last that long, it still started the fight, which is pretty much all he needed to do, and the rest of his team was there to clean it up. So it's not a huge kill lead by any stretch of the imagination, but it's enough to make Dignitas feel confident. And LGD, they don't really have anything right now because of the fact that their middle lane lost 2v1.
Yep.
I mean, that in the beginning of the game is enough to make LGD go, okay, well, this is obviously not going according to plan. And then you have your offlane Timbersaw, who doesn't have anything at all. He's got 18 CS, and he's barely level 7. When you have supports on Dignitas, who are level 8, and the offlaner is almost level 11, this is going to be a hard one, I think, for Dignitas to lose.
Top 3 in net worth all belong to the North Americans, and they want to fight again. There's a Fiend's Grip being used on DD. Just Fogged, doing it by himself. There's going to be a disruption. AUI is there. Going to be a weird angle from which to fight. Good force staff gets DD back to the high ground. Very well done there by Siler. Now they're going to reinitiate. Sneaking level 2 ulti going to town. There's Breathe Fire. Chin blows the ulti. Here comes the boat. The boat plus the hammer. OD finally making it work. Along with Kuka and Dignitas for the first time feeling the full wrath of what LGD's composition can bring to bear. Still yet pursuing out kills. That went as well as it could have. The angles for LGD gave them a win they needed, but it's a win in almost in theory more so than in practice, as they're still being chased out. Timbersaw will go ahead and hook himself up to safety. But again, they're not done, and Yao's stuck. He's gonna have to use the last of his mana on Chakram. There's the Dragon Tail. So nope, never mind. Wasn't a win. I misspoke. I was wrong. But yeah, that's what LGD has needed to get going all game long. They finally got it. But we see already just how far ahead Dignitas is in terms of where they are in experience and where they are in their items. As much as it hurt them, they were just able to survive through it.
Yeah, this is where you go, okay, we just hit a 3-man torrent into Chakram, into Boat, into Eclipse, and didn't really kill that much. That's when LGD starts to go, okay, we need to probably not try to fight anymore for a little while, take things a little bit more slowly, get an item or two on the Kunkka, because they're going to be relying on Tidebringer damage, and they're going to be relying on OD damage a lot. The Timbersaw just doesn't have enough levels to really feel that threatening right now, because again, he was in the offlane, which I feel like why so many times, if you're ever going to put a Timbersaw in an offlane, at least make sure he's in a 1v1, so he can do something.
Right.
Because Yao's presence just really hasn't been felt at all here.
We're going to see LGD smoke up, look to make something happen here in mid lane. Dignitas, either good game sense or just thinking the same thing, hooking up all in mid. They got one split pushing that universe, and they're going to be spotted out here. There's some dust. Disruption from DDC. Boat going to be shot, and they caught him this time. Sneaking, just run over. Now the reinitiation. They got a Fiend's Grip going off. He is going to be able to continue channeling it through the net. No way to interrupt it. Finally, the damage is coming back out. They do manage to bring down OD. Now another good sprout coming out of Universe. Zhao 8 not going anywhere, and a good nightmare from Yao. Even the chain might not save him, as AUI just hustling due to the passive of Razor. Continuing the chain his way away. And Chakram, no! Not enough! One more plasma field. And the announcer tells us what we already know. AUI is wicked sick. 18 minutes in, and they're ready to take yet another tower. The map control is evaporating, and not only are they taking towers, yeah, you want to talk tower defense? Once again, all 3 tier 1 still standing, none below half health. Dignitas has woken up in Seattle.
I can't believe how well they're playing this game. Like, that last fight especially, because they don't really have that many interrupts for the Fiend's Grip outside of the Kunkka and the Shadow Demon. As soon as they saw the Link was on, and if they had opportunity to go for the Grip, the Link came out, and Astral Imprisonment doesn't stop Blink. Pretty much nothing does. And as soon as Sylar realized how much damage he had, he tried to run, but he just died so fast. 196 damage stolen right there from Owie. And that's the point in the fight where LGD simply can't fight anymore.
Right.
Because they can't kill him. He's too tanky. They've already thrown the boat and the torrent. They have to go on full retreat. Well, there's a Nature's Prophet and a really fast Lightning Man who hits really hard, who's going to be chasing you. And they didn't even have sneaking for the fight. He got blown up at the beginning by the combos. So that just goes to show where Dignitas stand right now in terms of their advantage. They're going to be pushing the last tier 2 here, the last outer 2 tower of LGD. They might even be able to go for Roshan afterwards, even though fighting it in closed spaces kind of does favor LGD a bit, just because of their composition. I think Dignitas might just be too far ahead.
That last tier 2 at top, what they're eyeing. LGD gonna try to get a win under their belt. They need one desperately. Kunkka's vote up and ready to go as always. Such a low cooldown. That's the one big thing they have going for them. And OD did not spend his ult. So they're going to have a chance to chain it together if Dignitas gives them the opening. This time, though, sneaking will be a part of the party. Shadowblade in his inventory. He's even got a DD. And looks like they're just going to go ahead and back off. Universe going to go ahead and head down the bottom. Speaking of Universe, he's making pretty good progress. Easy to forget we're only 20 minutes into this game, with 21 kills in it and just so much movement and so much action. 3 of the top 5 in net worth all belong to Dignitas right now. Razor quite far ahead in particular. The highest farm on the entire side of LGD is this OD, who is rocking nothing but treads, 4 staff, and a quelling blade. And a null talisman, if you want to be technical. But 3 heroes ahead of him, one of which is just about 4,000 gold ahead of him in the Razors. So Dignitas is really winning by any metric you can measure.
And DD on sneaking too for this push. It's scary time right now for LGD. I don't even know if they can hold this. They might just have to sack their last tier 2.
Here we go. Creeps leading the way. Sneaking, taking a little bit of damage here. There's the torrent, actually off the mark that time. They're going to try to deny it. That's all they can do. Not going to happen. Sneaking immediately Shadow Blades. They're going to throw the dust, and that's enough to ward him off. Enough to stop the last initiation. Now it's on Dignitas how they want to play this out. Do they go ahead and just say it's time? Go take a Roshan, try to crack a 3? Or do they just play the strangle game? Take away the jungle, farm up, get further and further ahead, and just bank on LGD not being able to land a big combo or not being able to keep up with your farm, which is pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point.
Going for Roshan's definitely the safe bet. I would also recommend buying something like a gem, or at least some sentries, to make sure that LGD don't have any vision of their woods, because LGD is a team who, if anything, will utilize the map effectively, and if they know that they can farm somewhere, they're going to farm it. And you don't want to give them any avenue to get back in the game, whether it be farming in their jungle, farming in a lane, basically anything. So they have the money on their supports right now to buy gems if they wanted to, but it looks like Fog has actually delivered himself some sentries instead. And all the vision right now for LGD pretty much is in their woods, and the wards are still relatively fresh, so worth dewarding if you can possibly get them. And at this point, it's all Dignitas. The pace is completely theirs. Man, the Razor and the Nature's Prophet are worth so much more than anyone.
Yep.
That like, combined, they're barely higher, like between the OD and the Kunkka.
Combined, yeah, exactly. No, combined, they're just about tied with Razor. And yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm looking at their lineup. LGD has been, the last couple of times, has been doing a decent job of doing what they needed to do. Prioritizing key targets like sneaking, catching at least 2 or 3 with their AoEs, and it's just not mattering. This is just such a really well-drafted team out of Dignitas. And they're going to move on into the Roche pit. And LGD, we'll see if they want to try to do anything about it. I mean, this is, as you said, really where their forte would be, but the ability for Dignitas to just come and take a fight outside of the pit if they show up is just so high that I don't know that they can feel confident doing it. They're just going to let it go.
Yeah, they didn't really have much of a choice, honestly. Even with close quarter combat being really good for heroes like Kunkka and OD, it doesn't matter if you're so far behind that you're like a full item and a half behind the other team. And with the Aegis being up here on the DK, there's a good chance they could just crack the base. They could just suicide sneaking into the tower to get enough damage on it to kill it, and then when he comes back up, they could actually just take the engagement. That's how far ahead they are at this point. But I think they'll probably just play it safe anyway. Better safe than sorry. and they know that they can just asphyxiate LGD with a gigantic golden experience lead as time goes on. And it doesn't really get much bigger than over 15,000 gold at 23 minutes.
Not bad.
That's give or take as bad as they lost to DK earlier today.
Yep. And, we were talking about it during the draft. I mean, LGD, by just their composition, is just full of heroes who don't do well from behind. An OD just doesn't play catch-up well. A Timbersaw, same thing. Just doesn't play that well from behind. Kunkka, because he can flash farm to an extent because of Tidebringer and so on and so forth, he's all right. But he's a hero that you want at least near the top of the levels. You don't have to be 3 levels ahead, but you damn well don't want to be 3 levels behind, because you want him to be just naturally hitting well. You want him to be well leveled and with his stat gain and so on and so forth. And it's just, this is basically the tale of the next however long it takes Dignitas to close this out. It's going to be LGD standing on top of each other just waiting to defend their towers.
Yeah, it's basically turned into a game of endposts for LGD. They asked for no offensive spells, but I don't think Dignitas agreed to that, so it's going to be a little bit rough for them. So Dignitas right now are just controlling the map. It's really all they need to do. They don't need to rush it. They can wait until Sneaking has enough for his BKB, because he's got enough for the Mythor Hammer right now. You can see LGD smoked up outside of the base. They want to try to catch somebody.
Very quick. There's the dust. Then they're going to try to chase it down. There's the Astral Imprisonment. He's got a team on the way. Will they get here in time? Yep, now they're going to show up. Here's AUI. Comes to the plasma field, and look at the damage. Boat going to come through. Chen uses the heal to try and keep them up, but DD got caught with a Scythe of Ice. Good disruption. Xiao 8 going to be caught with the Fiend's Grip. DD comes back out right into a Sprout. Xiao 8, another Astral Imprisonment to bail out his buddy. Yao, though, stomped down by the Centaur. Double kill going the way of Thuetsu Sexy. And the route is on as they chase them beyond the tier 3s. Buyback out of the Timbersaw. Don't think it's going to matter. GG. GG. Dignitas, who earlier this morning looked like a team who barely belonged on the same stage as Team DK, bounced back and don't just win once. They hung a bagel on them. LGD losing both games in sub 30-minute fashion, no less, to the North Americans. How much more can you say? What an unbelievable day this has to have been for Dignitas.
Honestly, I did not think that they were going to take a game off of LGD. After watching the performance against DK, I think everyone who was watching those games would have told you that LGD would probably have a similar performance against Dignitas, and it would have just been a 2-0 rout, probably within under an hour, like we saw DK do to them. But honestly, Dignitas stuck to their style this time. They didn't give a huge deathball push to their opponents, which is, like we talked about over and over again, the worst thing that Dignitas deal with. Like, they're not good at it at all, but they're amazing at fighting, and their coordination during team fights is definitely top tier. Nothing you can say about that. So they pull out a 2-0 over one of the favorites to probably go top 3 in the entire tournament. And now LGD all of a sudden are going, oh, this group isn't as easy as we thought it was going to be.
Big wins for them. And, again, we kind of touched on it. Just getting wins like this that, quote unquote, on paper you shouldn't get or you're not expected to get. That's how teams sneak from the lower bracket to the higher bracket. That's how teams get on a roll. That's how they carry that momentum. They peak at the right time. And Dignitas certainly putting on a show for us and everyone else. Still short games today. We've only had one game actually go past 30 minutes. Nonetheless, been a hell of a day, and that day about to reach its conclusion. We have one last match ahead of us. That's going to be Tongfu, who we've seen in action twice already today, taking on another North American team and Team Liquid, who we have not had a chance to cast so far. So, guys, make sure you don't go anywhere, or if you do, make sure you're back in about 35 minutes. In fact, do go somewhere. Go watch Shiver. Go watch Toby. Go watch Beyond the Summit, LD, and the whole crew. Enjoy the end of their matches if they're still going on. We hope to see you back, though, in 35 minutes. Again, the final series of the day, Tongfu versus Team Liquid, coming up at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm AC. That's Straskell. We'll be right back. See you in 30.